Cardano just tossed a grenade into corporate accounting, and the pin says Reeve. And if their aim is true, the next Enron-style meltdown might actually be cancelled before the popcorn's even warm. So, picture me late last night, eyelids kind of strappled open by caffeine, scrolling through another forest-thick annual report. That is when my phone buzzes. Cardano Foundation launches Reeve, an on-chain financial reporting tool. Now my first thoughts were, sure, another blockchain buzzword salad, but then I saw who it was targeting: NGOs, public agents, ESG-obsessed corporates. Now, the very kind of folk whose kind of spreadsheets keep auditors in ergonomic chairs. If Cardano can really kind of stitch those spreadsheets straight onto its ledger, well, we're going to be talking about receipts that you can't doctor, even with a time machine. So here is kind of why this kind of made me sit up. Traditional finance is kind of like that childhood game of telephone. One department whispers numbers to another, they pass it to a third, and by the time it hits the auditors, 300 becomes 30,000. Human error, siloed databases, and let's be honest, the occasional bad actor turned routine reporting into a playground for fraud. Now, Reeve promises to kill the Whisper network. Every journal entry is hashed, timestamped, and locked onto Cardano. So if someone tries to kind of tinker later, the chain lights up like a Christmas tree saying, nope, that's not what happened. Now, what really kind of blew my mind is how Reeve isn't trying to kind of rip out existing ERP systems. It's more like it's a universal power adapter. You plug it into SAP, Oracle, or whatever dusty on-prem or on-prem kind of software that your finance team swears by, and suddenly their spreadsheets start speaking blockchain. Now that kind of means that there's no forklift upgrade, there's no multi-million-dollar migration slog. It's literally an API handshake, and your accountant's midnight Excel macros now leave a permanent breadcrumb trail on Cardano. Now, let's talk about the bigger picture stakes. NGOs lose an estimated $50 billion every year to financial mismanagement and fraud. Now, I've sat in donor briefings, where someone asks, how do we really know this money built a school and not a CEO's fourth villa? And you can cue the awkward coughs in the room. Now, with Reeve, an NGO, can stamp every expense report right onto the chain. Donors refresh a public dashboard, see the hash, and sleep soundly. Regulators, auditors, coffee-fueled Twitter watchdogs, everyone gets the same immutable receipts. Right? Transparency goes from, marketing buzzwords to a default setting. But I wouldn't be me if I didn't kick the tires. So I spun up a test dataset. Right? Think frictional kind of NGOs save the kind of platypus, fed, their quarterly kind of ledger through a Reeve sandbox, and boom, each expense popped out with a Cardano transaction ID. Right? I could click and verify. There's no 404s, no file not found, just rock solid hashes. Now, the coolest part here was that the latency was practically nil. Right? We're talking near real-time anchoring, not come back tomorrow, maybe it will be minted, right? For accountants, that's kind of like switching from dial-up to fiber optics overnight. Then there's a human side to all of this too, right? I chatted with a mid-tiered auditor friend. Now let's call her Zoe for the purpose of today's video, right? Swore enemies of kind of coffee breaks and asks the following: how immutable records would change her job? She laughed and said, it might give me my weekends back. So right now, audit teams kind of spend 60% of their kind of billable hours chasing the paperwork, checking the signatures and matching receipts. If the underlying data is already kind of cryptographically sealed, well, they can actually focus on the actual analysis instead of the bureaucratic kind of scavenger hunts. And don't even get me started on ESG, right? Investors are sick of greenwashing, right? They want provable impact metrics, and Reeve lets a solar farm operator log kilowatt output straight onto Cardano, pair them with revenue figures, and publish an ESG score that the public can verify. That's not just trust. That's kind of imagine the next quarterly call then, right? Here's our carbon reduction hash. Feel free to audit it yourself. Mic drop moment. And by the way, if digging into this kind of bleeding edge crypto use case fires you up, then our free educational Discord server is literally overflowing with nerds like us swapping play-by-plays. Right, the link is in the description. Slide in, say hi, and show me your favorite blockchain rabbit hole. But let's kind of check the scoreboard, right? Within 24 hours, of the announcement, ADA popped roughly 3%, climbing up to around the kind of 39 cent at the time. Right, over the week, up 6%, right? On the daily chart, I'm eyeing a textbook falling wedge. And if ADA kind of bulldozes that, we are above 60 cent, heading out towards 70, right? Could just be noise, could be a breakout. Either way, price is finally listening to the fundamentals once again. Now, before we dive any deeper, lean in for just a second, because the lawyers insist that I read you this magic spell. This might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile, and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video today is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Okay, exhale, let's get spicy, right? Remember the 2001 Enron implosion? Well, CFOs kind of cooking the books off balance sheets kind of entries, and shredders working overtime. Well, if Reeve had existed then, well, auditors wouldn't have needed to kind of need the whistleblowers, and they'd actually have seen the gaps in real time as hashes failed to match up. The same for FTX customer funds, borrowed to trade. Well, we would have left a neon trail, right? Now, that's kind of the superpower right here. Fraud attempts become, well, instantly visible, not, retroactively kind of tragic. So I ran a mental experiment then. What happens when a public listed company pipes its quarterly earnings releases through Reeve? Well, investors could cross-check revenue recognition or reconciliation, and the kind of minute that numbers kind of drop, and there's no more adjusted EBITDA, gymnastics going on, just creative accounting that hits the books, at least the blockchain brick wall, I guess. Share price volatility might spike at first, but the truth can sting sometimes, right? But the long term, well, the markets reward clarity, right? The transparent companies trade at a premium. The opaque ones, well, they'll hear the footsteps. Now, of course, tech is not magic pixie dust, right? There's still the old world challenge of garbage in and garbage out, right? If someone fabricates invoices before they're hashed, well, Reeve can't smell a lie that early on. But it does slash the window for manipulation and makes collusion, vastly harder. So imagine trying to get rid of departments' inputs without triggering a single mismatch alert. Good luck. Now, let me slide on the macro geek hat for a second. Right, Cardano is being criticized for moving slow, like the academic kid in the back perfecting every equation while Ethereum kids throw pizzas at the whiteboard. But launching Reeve kind of plants a very audit flag, right? Cardano, it wants to be the trust layer of enterprise data, not just the DeFi, or at least another DeFi playground, right? That kind of plays into its kind of EUTXO model, right? It's built for parallelism and, deterministic kind of behavior, perfect for the audit trails. So I called a former Big Four partner, gray hair, ties so extensive, or expensive, I should say, that they probably have a frequent flyer status. And I asked if their clients are even talking blockchain audits yet. Now, he told me, honestly, most CFOs still think crypto is dog money, but they are desperate for cheaper compliance. So Reeve could be the Trojan horse. Sell costs savings, today, slip in decentralization tomorrow. But costs do matter, right? Manual audits, and I guess Sarbanes-Oxley compliance can run mid-cap firms $2 to $5 million a year. Now, an on-chain solution that cuts even 20% in real money and the cash kind of strapped NGOs, well, it's the difference between 5 new wells drilled this year or 2 of them waiting. And that's how you kind of win adoption then, right? Save users cash and headaches in one go. But here's a quick pit stop to refuel. Now, if you decide that ADA or any coin belongs in your portfolio, well, I use Kraken Pro for my trades. The link down below, and yes, that is an affiliate link, which means if you sign up and trade, you support the channel and no extra cost to yourself. But more importantly, Kraken's fees schedule is transparent. The UI doesn't look like 2008 Craigslist, and their staking interface is basically a 2-click taco. And shill, back to the business. Now, the more that I poke Reeve, the cleaner that a pattern kind of emerged, right? It's less about blockchain envisionalism and more, about restoring trust. Now, in an era where, deep fakes can mimic a CEO's voice and AI can forge entire, paper trails, immutability becomes the sanity anchor. So think of Reeve as a digital notary kind of stamping every financial heartbeat. When regulators come a-knocking, you don't haul out a dusty binder. You hand them a blockchain explorer link and say, knock yourself out. So remember Zoe, right? My audit warrior friend. Well, she ran a hypothetical. If 50% of her clients adopted immutable ledgers, her firm could pivot talent from, rote verification to forensic analysis and predictive modeling. The translation is that the boring bit shrinks quite a bit and the value add kind of grows. Now that's how entire industries evolve, through tools that actually make the old grind unattainable. But let's zoom back to ADA's chart, one last sniff test, right? Now, volume uptick for kind of the breakout attempts tell me that speculators smell utility, not just the vibes, right? If fundamental adoption starts kind of showing up in the on-chain metrics like wallet counts linked to enterprise nodes, that could actually be the narrative spark that ADA's been missing since the Alonso upgrade. But remember, narratives are fickle. Fundamentals kind of take time, so don't chase green candles in flip-flops. What's the biggest wild card then? Well, regulatory blessings, right? Europe's kind of MiCA framework loves clear audit trails. The SEC, well, they can't even agree on lunch, right? So a tool that kind of hard codes transparency could nudge policymakers, and it could say, look, decentralized tech can be audit friendly. Now, if that message kind of lands, maybe we stop kind of lumping every blockchain into the Wild West bucket. Now, if you've stuck around this long, you're probably the kind of brain that binge watches white paper reviews at 2 a.m. Kudos. Now, you'll kind of fit right into that Discord that we talked about earlier. So hop in, tag me, and let's kind of worship that kind of, at least what a Reeve-powered treasury dashboard might look like in the future. First one to kind of prototype it kind of gets lifetime bragging rights. In the end though, what really excites me isn't exactly ADA's price potential. It's the idea that in 10 years from now, financial statements might be judged not by glossy PDF designs, but by cryptographic integrity scores. Reeve could be that tipping point where, show me the chain replaces trust me bro. And if that happens, yes, you better believe that I'll raise a glass of cold brew to the nerd who built it. Now, if you've learned something today, or at least maybe even chuckled just once, hit that subscribe button so that the algorithm knows that we're doing something right.